This is the story of Saint Camillus de Lillis. Saint Camillus de Lillis is the patron saint of the sick, hospitals, and nurses. He dedicated his life to the sick and to organizing hospitals. First founder of the Order of the Camillians, priests and brothers who work in the area of health. He considered the sick to be Jesus himself. His feast day is on July 18th. His life should serve as an inspiration to us, as he was not born perfect. Camillus de Lillis was born on May 25th, 1550, at Bucanico, now in Abruzzo, then part of the Kingdom of Naples. His mother, Camilla Compelli de Loreto, was nearly 50 when she gave birth to him. His father was an officer in both the Neapolitan and French royal armies, and was seldom home. De Lillis had his father's temper, and due to her age and retiring nature, his mother felt unable to control him as he grew up. His mother passed away in 1562, then was virtually abandoned by his father. As a consequence, he grew up neglected by the family members who took him in after her death. At the age of 16 years old, de Lillis joined the Venetian army and fought in a war against the Turks. After a number of years in military service, his regiment was disbanded in 1575. After gambling away all his possessions, de Lillis took work as a laborer at the Capuchin friary at Manfredonia. He was constantly plagued, however, by a leg wound he received while in the army, which would not heal. Despite his aggressive nature and excessive gambling, the guardian of the friary saw a better side to his nature and continually tried to bring that out in him. Eventually, the friar's exhortations penetrated his heart, and he had a religious conversion in 1575. He then entered the novitiate of the Capuchin friars. His leg wound, however, had continued to plague him and was declared incurable by the physicians. Thus, he was denied admission to that order. He traveled to Rome, where he entered San Giacomo Hospital, dedicated to the founder Giovanni Colonna, which cared for the incurable cases. He himself became a caregiver of the hospital and later its superintendent. He was known to follow a strict ascetic life, performing many penances, such as constant wearing of a hair shirt. De Lillis began to observe the poor attention the sick received from the staff of the hospital. He was led to invite a group of pious men to express their faith through the care of the patients at the hospital. Eventually, he felt called to establish a religious community for this purpose, and that he should seek holy orders for this task. Saint Philip Neri, being his spiritual confessor and director, gave him approval for this endeavor, and a wealthy donor provided him with the income necessary to undertake his seminary studies. With Saint Neri's consent, Saint Camillus was ordained a priest and founded a congregation with 2 others. He was ordained on Pentecost of 1584 by Lord Thomas Goldwell, Bishop of St. Asaph, Wales, and the last surviving Catholic bishop of Great Britain. Saint Camillus established the Order of the Clerks Regular, known as the ministers of the sick and the ministers of the infirm. abbreviated as M.I., better known as the Camillians. His experience in wars led him to establish a group of healthcare workers who would assist soldiers on the battlefield. The large red cross on the habits remains a symbol of the Camillians, a symbol universally recognized today as a sign of charity and service. This was the original Red Cross hundreds of years before the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement was formed. During the Battle of Canisa in 1601, while Camillians were helping with the wounded, the tent in which they were tending to the sick and in which they had all their equipment and supplies was completely destroyed and burned to the ground. Everything in the tent was destroyed except the red cross of a religious habit belonging to one of the Camillians who was ministering to the wounded on the battlefield. This event was taken by the Camillians to manifest divine approval of the Red Cross of Saint Camillus. Members of the order also devoted themselves to victims of bubonic plague. It was due to the efforts of the brothers and supernatural healings by Delilus that the people of Rome credited Delilus with ridding the city of a great plague and the subsequent famine. For a time, he became known as the Saint of Rome. Delilus' concern for the proper treatment of the sick extended to the end of their lives. He had come to be aware of many cases of people being buried alive. Due to haste, and ordered that the brothers of his order wait 15 minutes past the moment when the patient seemed to have drawn his last breath, in order to avoid this. The image here is of the Church of Saint Mary Magdalene in Rome. In 1586, Pope Sixtus V gave the group a formal recognition as a congregation and assigned them the Church of Saint Mary Magdalene in Rome, which they still maintain. In 1588, they expanded to Naples, and in 1594, Saint Camillus led his religious to Milan, where they attended to the sick of the city's main hospital. Pope Gregory XV raised the congregation to the status of an order, equivalent with the mendicant orders, in 1591. That year, members of the order went to Hungary and Croatia to minister the wounded troops. This was the first field medical unit. It was then that they established the fourth religious vow unique to their order, to serve the sick, even with danger to one's own life. Throughout his life, Delilus' ailments caused him suffering, but he allowed no one to wait on him and would crawl to visit the sick when unable to stand and walk. It is said that Camillus possessed the gifts of healing and prophecy. He resigned as Superior General of the Order in 1607, but continued to serve as Vicar General of the Order. By that time, communities of the Order had spread all throughout Italy and Hungary. He assisted in a general chapter of the Order in 1613, which he accompanied the new Superior General on an inspection tour of all the hospitals of the Order in Italy. During that tour, he fell ill. He died in Rome on July 25th, 1614. Saint Camillus was canonized in 1746, and along with Saint John of God, was declared patron saint of the sick, nurses, and nursing groups. The image in front of you is the cross that spoke to Saint Camillus. Today his body is preserved in Rome in the altar of the Church of Saint Mary Magdalene, along with several of his relics. Also displayed is the cross which spoke to Camillus, and asked him, "Why are you afraid? Do you not realize that this is not your work, but mine?" I found 2 quotes online of Saint Camillus, and here goes the first one. "The happiness to which I aspire is greater than anything on earth. Therefore, I regard with extreme joy whatever pains and suffering may befall me here." Second quote: "Think well, speak well, do well. These 3 things, through the mercy of God, will make a man or woman go to heaven."